This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Let me give you my opening statement here. We're not in court. We're in the court of public opinion. We're in the court of mobilizing the American people because we are in more than a crisis. Our country is hanging by a thread. We have radical leftists of all sexes, races, colors, creeds, and persuasions in the streets, looting, burning, maiming, and killing. They have one goal, and one goal only, and that's to take down the vision of our founding fathers. I don't even say to take down the government. You see, that's what you'll hear on Fox News. It's not the government. We don't have a government anymore. We know we don't have a government. These people represent themselves. Look at Nancy Pelosi getting caught in a hair salon this week, violating, her own edicts with regard to social distancing. They're a complete clown show. The Republicans are no better, the establishment. They're a bunch of hacks, too. Kevin McCarthy, you remember him? He's the minority leader in the House of Representatives. When there was a Benghazi investigation against Hillary Clinton over what happened there, he called it a political witch hunt against her. I mean, what kind of person runs the Republican establishment that would say something like that? They're not in it for real. They're in it to promote themselves, to perpetuate power. And that is why, and I might add money, you notice how they come in poor but leave rich, assuming they ever leave at all or rich while they're there. But we, the American people, need to rise up now because our country is experiencing what's in effect a Bolshevik revolution. And radical leftists, radical African-American anti-white separatists, radical Muslims, radicals of the Jewish left, and I'm Jewish myself, you know that, I'm a Jewish Christian, but the leftist Jewry are a big threat to the American people, just as Marx was and Trotsky was in the Soviet Union, and they took down the Tsar and created communism. Not that the Tsar was great, but what they created was even worse. And this is what their intention is today. Radicals of all persuasions, sexes, colors, and creeds in the streets. And then you have the politicians who, from the left, from the Democratic Party, it's a shame that Democratic Party has devolved into this, have participated in this by handcuffing the police, by firing them, by rendering them impotent to do their job. And therefore, we the people are left defenseless. So therefore, we must rise up, as our founding fathers did in 1776, against the British Crown, against King George III. Our forefathers tried to reason with King George III. They didn't want to fight a revolution if they didn't have to. But his yes men in the court of St. James rubber-stamped all of his draconian tyrannical orders, removing not just our firearms, trying to confiscate them, overtaxing us, using the colonies as a way to support the entire British Empire, enslaving us, ironically, in oppression. And this is the goal of the leftists. Make no mistake about it, they are Marxist. And they pervade every aspect of society. They're in the deep state, they're in the legislature, they're in the executive branch, and they're in the judiciary, and they're also in bar associations who are trying to eliminate lawyers like yours truly who stand up to them. And I will never, ever give in to these people. Never. Because, you see, what's more important than even courts of law, and I respect the courts. I'm an idealist. I believe that judges are our most important public servants, but unfortunately they've become despots, as Thomas Jefferson predicted. He said because federal judges are unelected, they're unaccountable to the people, they think they have lifetime tenure, Frankly, the Constitution does not give them lifetime tenure. It says they can serve for good behavior. They gave themselves immunity. They should not have immunity. They have to be responsible for their actions. But they're sitting by and watching what's happening as the country is burning. Now, occasionally you do find a good judge, and we search for that. And I've had some good judges of late, but they're few and far between. And that is why the American people must rise up. And it's why, as you'll hear in the latter part of this show, that Sheriff Joseph Arpaio and I, America's toughest sheriff, and Larry Klayman, America's toughest lawyer, have formed a new group, America's Sheriff, to fight for law enforcement, not just in the courts, not just in the courts of public opinion, but to mobilize the populace peacefully and legally to support our local police, to take action wherever we can. In fact, we have the right to even do citizens' arrests and turn criminals over to law enforcement. The problem is we have no enforcement anymore because it's been shackled, it's been handcuffed. Look at what's happening in cities like Philadelphia, in Chicago, in Los Angeles, in Seattle, in Portland, in Washington, D.C., in Miami. The cities are burning. And if and when President Trump gets reelected, and I believe that he probably will at this point because of this violence that is occurring in the streets, you're going to see all these major cities burn to the ground. It's going to make what happened in the early stages of the civil rights era look minor. But you see, we don't have leaders in the civil rights community anymore like Martin Luther King, who believed in equality for all people, who was dignified, who understood the word of God. By and large, what we have are groups like Black Lives Matter, a Marxist black separatist group, which is bent not just on making this nation a communist gulag, but on relegating white people and other people who aren't like them to second-class status. Now, it wasn't right when blacks were in second-class status, when they were at the back of the bus. Clearly not. Slavery was improper. It was abhorrent. And in fact, we have a President Lincoln who was a Republican who came along, a real Republican, not like what we have today. President Trump, by the way, is not a Republican. Okay, that's clear. He has to deal with the Republican Party because that's his vehicle. But the Republican Party is spineless. They're gutless. They're in it for themselves. They're in it for power. And the Democrat Party is just plain evil. They're the disciples of the devil, frankly, at this point, where they've come from. And consequently, we, the American people, need to rise up. So what does Sheriff Arpaio and I do, the dynamic duo? We form a group, America's Sheriff. And America's Sheriff is going to take action. We're not just going to talk. We don't just get documents. We don't just go on Fox News. In fact, we can't go on Fox News because Fox News doesn't want anybody that's actually doing anything. And that's what my new book is about. It takes a revolution. Forget the scandal industry, because it's just a profit game for them, boosting ratings, boosting money, self-aggrandizement. The people that you see on Fox News, by and large, do nothing. Some of them have big cleavages or pretty faces or nice legs, and that's about it to get people to tune in. The American people don't have time for that anymore. We have time only for action to save the country. And, as Sheriff Arpaio has told me, and he'll probably tell us when he comes on later on in this show, look at what foreign powers are thinking about the United States, looking at us from afar, that we're on our back. We can't even police our streets. We can't even keep people from getting killed. And frankly, anytime anyone says you're a racist, white people run for the exits, put their heads down. Look at professional sports, what they've done. 2 national anthems, one for black people and one for the rest in an NFL, an absolute disgrace. Look at the NBA, painting Black Lives Matter on courts and letting the players, most of which are, frankly, drug addicts, lowlives, and philanderers, have any kind of saying that they want on their jersey. I mean, it's not even a bad joke. It's disgusting. Look at Major League Baseball, very similar, and even pro golf, which has dignity and class, has rolled over and gotten down on its knees, to these hordes, these masses. It's like white people are getting on their knees in a crouched position, saying, "Don't hurt me. Sorry, leave me alone. I don't want to do anything." But you know what? Whether you're white, black, green, color green, or blue, I think there are 2 green people in there. We have to rise up. We're all one people. We're all people who believe, at least the ones that support Sheriff Arpaio and me and the president and others, we believe in not just capitalism. We believe in the vision of our founding fathers, freedom and liberty. And that's why we formed this group, America's Sheriff. It works in tandem with Freedom Watch. It's separate, but it's focused on saving our law enforcement and putting them back on the streets to do their job. Cops are leaving in droves. You know, I have a brother who was a Philly cop. He's now going to be a lawyer. He left. Now, hopefully he'll get something accomplished doing that. But, you know, in today's day and age, it takes more than being a lawyer. It takes more than going into court. You know, our founding fathers didn't go into the court of St. James to create a new nation and to fight a revolution. This needs to be fought in the streets peacefully and legally. We need to educate the children, our young people, because they're in these universities, by and large, being taught Marxist philosophy. You have, and I'm a Jewish Christian, as I said, you have Jewish kids coming out of universities who are turned into anti-Semites that would rather support the Palestinians, Hamas and Hezbollah, than their own people. It's unbelievable. And this is something which you really need to focus on. Read my column this week on WND.com. It's about all of this. And we need to rise up. And that's what I'm saying. No punches pulled. Sheriff ARPAIO and I are unafraid. We take the heat. You know, we've been put down, but we're not out. We are coming strong for the American people, just like our founding fathers did, because they were unafraid. And that is my message. So I want you to go out and pre-order my book, It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. I have certain suggestions on how we can save this country. I just don't write a book like my monologue, like a Hannity's monologue, and then say vote for President Trump. You know, President Trump, if he wins, he's only going to be there for 4 years. This country's sinking faster than a rock, and we need to do it for ourselves. So listen carefully to what Sheriff Joe and I have to say during this show. Listen to what we say generally. Go to americasheriff.org, 2 S's in the middle, americasheriff.org, enlist in our army, and go to freedomwatchusa.org. I'll be right back with Sheriff Joe ARPAIO, a great American, unafraid patriot of this country.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with Sheriff Joe ARPAIO, my friend, my client, a brave American patriot who's always stood for what he believes is right. I believe that I'm the same way. I'll let you come to that conclusion or not. But this week, we had a very important announcement. We founded a new public interest group, a 501c3. We've named it America's Sheriff. It's named actually after the sheriff. His trademark, so to speak, is America's toughest sheriff. But we formed this group not just to protect local police, not just to further them, to be an action group, but all law enforcement. Because in this country, the rule of law has been trashed. Leftist Marxists in the streets of all political persuasions, races, colors, and creeds are trying to take this country down. And local mayors and governors are assisting them in doing that because they think they can get a total hold over this country in the upcoming elections. Now, as a public interest group, we don't tell you who to vote for, but we can tell you personally who we support, and we support President Trump. But we need to do more than what the federal government is currently doing. We need to be their hamburger helper in a way. The American people need to rise up in support of the president, and we need to rise up in support of our local law enforcement. Already at Freedom Watch, I have a lawsuit pending against the mayor, Jim Kenney, against the district attorney who was elected with the money of George Soros, a person who collaborated by his own admission, he's proud of it, with Nazis during World War II, confiscating the property of Jews, going off to ovens and gas chambers, and the police chiefs, former police chief Richard Ross, who was disgraced and left over sexual harassment charges, and the current police chief, Danielle Outlaw, who not coincidentally was plucked from Portland, Oregon. This is something which is very, very important, and the action that we intend to take at America's Sheriff is crucial, and we need your support to do it. I ask you to go to americassheriff.org. There's 2 S's in the middle, americassheriff.org, and support our cause. And I now introduce you to the great American patriot, Sheriff Joe Arpaio. The two of us are in effect a dynamic duo because we're unafraid. We're unafraid to do what needs to be done peacefully and legally to save the republic and prevent it from being turned into a Marxist state, which is the aim and objective of the leftists in the streets today, who are burning, looting, maiming, and killing at will. We see that increased every single day. Sheriff Arpaio, it's a pleasure to have you as my partner in this group, in this endeavor, and my friend. I've represented you in the past in terms of killing Obama's executive amnesty, dealing with the birth certificate, which is still an issue which needs to be looked at, and also, with regard to, other matters that we have fought for in terms of the fake news media. So anyway, I want to get your take for our listeners. We have a certain amount of time in this segment, which is segment 2, and then we have a longer segment because I want people to understand why it is that we've put our foot forward and formed America's Sheriff.
Well, thanks, Larry. Thanks for doing this, keeping you and I in the fight in a different sort of way. You were a prosecutor. I've been in law enforcement, 56 years, and now joining forces, doing what's right for our country. It's sad what's going on the streets of America. And it's sad how the political system is interfering with the criminal justice system. So someone has to speak out, and you've been doing it for years. I've been doing it as sheriff for 24 years. I've been very, very vocal. I believe in transparency. I believe in telling my bosses, which are the people, not the politicians, what I was doing. Consequently, I get another title of a publicity hound. I can go on, and a lot of the publicity, just like you, is not nice publicity. But on the other hand, like the old saying goes, any press is good press. So I feel with you and I on this new venture is critical, is important, because we can continue to speak out, let the people know what the true story is. And what I like about your involvement is you know how to fight back through the courts.
We'll be right back, Sheriff. We're going to get into our second segment now. We'll expound on this in even greater detail. We'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
Sure. What is your take? I mean, what do you see what's going on in the streets today? What's the dynamic of what's happening from your perspective as a law enforcement official of 56 years?
I've been through all these fights. I've been through demonstrations, even way back when I was the top guy with the Federal Drug Enforcement Administration, especially overseas. I've seen revolutions. I've been involved in these situations in Turkey and Latin America. I can go on and on. But I never thought it would get to the stage that we are seeing right now. Not past demonstrations, but right now there's a different element involved. So I'll tell you, one of it is politics, and the other is these thugs, these criminals that come in, take advantage of demonstrations, and they loot and they steal, and I can go on and on. And what's sad about it, Larry, and I'm really concerned about this, is having served all those years in foreign countries. How do you think the foreign countries feel when you see cops standing by, allowing these thugs to go into businesses, drag out TVs, on, and they just stand there and look at it? And we can't seem to solve this problem. I don't blame the cops on the streets, because they're taking their orders from the chiefs and the city council, mayors, governors, and their hands are tied. And then when something occurs, there's a shooting, especially if it involves an African American, everything blows up. These mayors have no guts. The minute there's a shooting, they call the Department of Justice because they see a video. They don't give the cops a chance to fight it out. They don't give the cops a chance, or police departments, to investigate, to see what the real story is before these politicians throw them under the bus. And that's what's sad. How do you expect cops to do their job? They're afraid to do anything, knowing they're going to be charged with murder and so on when they're trying to do their job. So we're in a bad state right now across our nation, and something has to be done about it. And it's great to have, I don't want to call ourselves the outsiders, but maybe I am an outsider right now, but I'm really not, because my whole life has been dedicated to fighting crime and doing what I thought was right. So this is very enlightening. When you and I got together and say we have to form a group, and boy, you sure have the history of criminal justice, and you've been director of two of these associations that's geared to what we're trying to do now with this new organization that we formed. So I think, Larry, we're going to take a lot of heat. Who cares? You've been taking heat. I've been taking heat since I've been the sheriff for 24 years. I can take more heat because we have to do something to save our country. And what I like about your role in this, that you're not afraid to take on anyone, and through the court system. That's one way you can do it, through the court system. I lost my gun and badge after 56 years, but I can still fight without the gun and badge, and with you do what's right through a different system, which is the legal system and the speaking out system. So that's my reason that I'm excited about this. And this is a time for you and I. If there ever was a time for someone to get involved, boy, this is the time to save our streets, save our country, and get the current president reelected.
And that's crucial in terms of what our mission is. Our mission is to not just restore law and order to the streets, as you're saying, and I know that you agree with this, but it's to save the country as a whole. Because what's going on right now is, in effect, a Bolshevik revolution. These are leftists. They're radicals from every single group. African Americans, most of them would not support what's going on. It's these radicals that are doing it, anti-white separatists. You have radicals, atheists, anarchists, radical Muslims, radicals from all walks of life trying to tear the country down. And you're right. Foreign countries are looking at us and are saying we're weak, we're coming unglued. God forbid someone tries to take advantage of us. I think it probably is going to happen unless something's done quickly, either Iran or communist China or North Korea or, God knows where else. We're on our knees. We're on our back, in effect. It's worse than being on our knees. We're on our back. And we need to rise up peacefully and legally. And that's extremely important. And people need to defend themselves. They need to use their Second Amendment rights defensively, not offensively, to get ready, because they're going to be in front of your house. They're going to be asking for the keys to the house. They're going to be asking for the keys to your car. They're going to want all your property at some point. They believe that they're entitled. This is a Marxist revolution. which believes that everybody should be the same. Everyone is equal, so to speak, in their own eyes, but they're not equal because under Marxism, we see what's happened throughout the years. Dictatorships arise, and there are special people who benefit by it, and there are those who are persecuted by it. And that's why what we're doing is so important. And it works in, parallel fashion to Freedom Watch, which you can see at freedomwatchusa.org. Go to americassheriff.org, O-R-G, and join our cause. We are extremely focused. And Freedom Watch's umbrella, America's Sheriff is focused on this particular issue, because if we don't have law enforcement, and I have a brother who was a Philadelphia cop, I know what goes on there. Philadelphia's become the second biggest murder capital of this country. And who is the district attorney there, Sheriff? A guy named Larry Krasner, who was elected with Soros's money. Soros donated $3 million to have you defeated as sheriff back in 2016. And Soros is financing these people. And you have a thing called the Plainview Project, which is out there, probably also being financed by him. We don't even know specifically what it is. It's just kind of a nebulous thing out there. And they've taken social media posts, private ones of police officers, and they weren't even racist. They were benign. And these police officers are under a lot of pressure. They're allowed to let off a little steam every now and then, which doesn't hurt anybody. And Krasner and the mayor, Jim Kenney, who was up for re-election, a ultra-leftist, and the police chief, Richard Ross, also a leftist, and now Danielle Outlaw, great name, Danielle Outlaw, that's who they have as police commissioner in Philadelphia. African-American, came from Portland, Oregon. She's basically just a placeholder there so they can do their evil doings. Have fired nearly 200 of the local police in Philadelphia without due process, without giving them a hearing. And usually, the policy of Philadelphia is in most police departments, from Maricopa County, if there is an offense, and there was no offense here, you get a warning or you get some kind of minor sanction. Here they were just simply fired. And it is a discrimination against primarily white male cops and other cops. And it's in line with the Black Lives Matter movement and what they're doing in that regard, which is a Marxist group, separatist group. And, everybody deserves equal rights in this country. Not just Black Lives Matter, not just other radicals. Everybody deserves equal rights, and that's what we stand for, Sheriff. And, tell us, when you ran Maricopa County, the Sheriff's Department, what your modus operandi was. What were you trying to accomplish there? And it was times less dire than today, believe me.
Well, I'll tell you what's sad. Being a dedicated federal official agent through all those years, and then here I am in the last 2-3 years, or especially 2016, when I lost the election, the general election, that my own government has done everything to get rid of me. I'm not going to get into when they tapped my telephones and went after me just before the election. These biased judges wouldn't even give me a jury trial. The fix was in to get rid of this guy, and mainly because I was going after illegal immigration, doing my job. So I made a name because of that. It became very popular when many people running for president would come to me begging me for my endorsement. And yet, after Obama took office, they went after me, and they got me. It took them 8 years to get me on a contempt of court. You know all that. So how do you think I feel when my own government is going after me illegally? So all that's going to come out, Larry. You wait. I have a book coming out. It's going to be a very exciting book. So we have to do something about this. Together, you and I, we're going to shake people up, and maybe we'll do something to help our country in a long run or a short run. We don't have much time to wait. We have to do something right now. It's out of hand anyway. So time is of the essence, and we have to send that message to these politicians who are playing their games. And unfortunately, who is hurt is the citizens, the people of our country, and more than anything, it's hurting our police officers, our first line of defense. And that's sad. And I'm going to say it again. I look at the big picture. How do you think this country looks, the greatest, strongest country in the world, when all these people in foreign countries watch Fox, CNN, and they see looters going into buildings, taking out TVs, and the cops just standing there when they're burning buildings down? You're trying to tell me that you can't straighten this out and go in there and lock them all up and drag them out and throw them in jail, but you stand there and watch this? And we're supposed to have the biggest, strongest military in the universe, and yet this is occurring. So to me, it's a little deeper than just, guys going in there and no one taking action. So that's the way I feel about it. So this is a big picture. This isn't just riots on the street. You know it. You know who's behind it. You know what the reasoning is. And it's sad, really sad. And I get angry because I know what I would have done if I was the sheriff. I would have locked them all up. So I'm angry in a sense and disappointed at what took place on the streets recently, and when the cops just stood there because they were ordered to do so. And I remember something that's really interesting. When I started out at 21 after I got out of the Army, 21 years of age, and joined the Washington, D.C. Police Department. And I walked the black beat for 4 years. Not an easy beat. But one thing I learned, and I know it can't be done, I took an oath of office to enforce the laws. And I always said to myself, I took that oath of office. I don't need a sergeant or a lieutenant or anyone to tell me not to make an arrest, because I took an oath of office to make the arrest. Now, these days, you can't do it. When cops go to the toilet, they have to ask their sergeant. So I always look at that, but I don't see that
We're going to be
anymore.
right back. So hold on for the verdict segment, because this is an important point, and I have something I want to add with you being on the line at the same time. We'll be right back with Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. We're talking about arresting these criminals, which needs to be done. And in the meantime, go to americasheriff.org and sign up and enlist in our very important and urgent cause. We'll be right back.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
This is the verdict, fellow patriots, citizens, people who believe in our Constitution and the rule of law. Sheriff was just talking about arrests. Clearly what's going on today on all sides is a political game. We have no time for political games. We have time to save the country. We're facing a pandemic which, whatever its severity, and I do believe it's been overstated, but nevertheless, perceptions become reality. And if you layer that on top of this violence, and it's more than just looting and burning, it's maiming and killing. People have been killed just this week. Just last Friday, a cop was killed in Cleveland. Cops have been killed in Portland, in Chicago, in Washington, D.C., elsewhere. And the cops can't fight back. I mean, they have firearms to protect themselves, but anytime they use it, they're accused of being racist, and people just run for the exits. But there's an interesting concept that I wrote about in my book, Sheriff, and my book's called It Takes a Revolution, Forget the Scandal Industry. That's going to be out in October. You can pre-order it on Amazon.com, on Barnes & Noble, on Books A Million, on Borders, is that there is a legal legacy of citizens' arrests, and it started in England. And how that works is a citizen can make an arrest and then turn the guilty party or the alleged guilty party over to law enforcement to do its job. But today, even law enforcement can't do its job because it's being told to stand down, and its hands are being tied behind its back, such as with my client, Kiara Robles, who sued the city of Berkeley and University of California at Berkeley when the police stood around when she was beaten up and tased and pepper sprayed and hit with flagpoles by Antifa, just going to a speakers event of Mayo Yiannopoulos at Berkeley. She's a gay woman. She's conservative. She's pro-Trump. And they beat the crap out of her. And I sued Berkeley. But what happened? I got a judge who taught school at Berkeley and went to Berkeley. She dismissed it. I took it up on appeal. And even the Ninth Circuit reversed it. Okay, but not with regard to Berkeley, because they all went to Berkeley too. This is the way it works. But with regard to Antifa, that case is now going forward. So, we have to fight, and we cannot be afraid. And you and I remember Justice Thomas saying to me once at an event in Washington, if you're going to do something for the American people, you have to be prepared to get cut. So our battle wounds, yours and mine, are badges of honor. They're like Purple Hearts in a way. And all the American people must accept this, that they're going to come after you if you take a stand. And that's why I love you so much, because you take a stand and you're not afraid. So I want you to talk to the American people and our listeners about not being afraid, and we need to join in because we're going to lose our country. Our founding fathers were not afraid. They risked their lives, fortunes, and pledged their sacred honor to form a new nation. They were unafraid. And right now, and this is the theme of my book, get up off the couch, turn off cable news, get to work. Don't be entertained. It's not time to be entertained. We have to actually save the country, we the people. And even if Trump wins, that's only 4 years. Things are going to be much worse in 4 years. So, Sheriff, give your final thoughts on this, because this is the verdict. The American people must do it for themselves with God's grace. That's my verdict, and I know it's yours.
I'm a little discouraged that I didn't get elected a couple of months ago, but had a lot of things against me. My age, I can go on and on. But, life goes on. I'm not retiring. And I think a lot of the people out there, the establishment that went after me, and even 3 years ago when I stood active, they were hoping I'd go fishing. Now they're going to be really a little disappointed because I'm not going fishing. I'm still going to be out there and doing my thing. When you talk about citizens' arrests, I hired 3,000 posse guys, swore them in, gave them authority. Now, one advantage of being an elected sheriff is you serve the people directly. You don't have to worry about some supervisor.
You try, but you know what? Now you're free. Now you're free, unbridled, unshackled, okay, by the bureaucracy of government in America's sheriff to even be stronger than you were before. So I know that you're not discouraged. I'm not discouraged. The more people push, the more we fight back. We're like the president in that regard. And I want to thank you for everything you do, and God bless you. And I look forward to working with you and being your partner. Thank you for listening to us.